welcome back to another episode of the Lonely Liberal Podcast. I'm your host, Nick Zankin, and I'm so happy to have you on this lovely Wednesday evening, or maybe Thursday morning. I don't know. I'm in California. Everything's topsy-turvy. Regardless of when this comes out, I am so happy to have you. Of course I am. And we've got a great show for you today. We're going to be going through this Iran peace deal. It's finally out. Stop the presses. No more speculating what it will be, what it won't be. The whole 14-point plan is out. Now, let us remember that only just 2 days ago, Trump said it was fake news that this thing was what it was. But alas, here we are. He's at the G7 talking about it, and we have the document. So what I thought I could do is go through each point, for all 14, point for point, and what I've done is rank them from what I think are the least egregious points to the most egregious, from 14 to 1, with 1 being the craziest. And yeah, I just thought it would be more fun to go through it rather than just summarizing everything, because some of this stuff is fairly boilerplate. They'll be kind of quick points, but the most egregious ones, as you'll find out in 5-10 minutes, are nuts. We got a lot to talk about, but before we get to it, don't forget to like, subscribe, rate, review, all that stuff. It really, really helps. You are the marketing department, aka word of mouth, and I really appreciate everyone who does that. But like I said, we got a lot to talk about. So without further ado, let's get to it. All right, so just very, very quick context. I mean, listeners of this show will know what I'm about to say, but just in case you're a new listener, first of all, hello, how are you? Thank you so much for listening. But just some background. So when Trump first took office in his first term, he ripped up what they call the Iran nuclear deal that Obama made, which was just basically saying that Iran wasn't allowed to enrich its uranium to a certain threshold because then it would break the deal and yada, yada, yada. Trump said it was a disaster, horrible. He ripped it up, and there we go. Since then, he's been kind of trying to strong-arm Iran into signing a new deal that really abolishes everything with nuclear, not just like weapons, but just they can't even have any uranium and stuff like that. And eventually, that's what led us to the war alongside a little birdie named Netanyahu in his ear. So we've been at war with Iran for around 4 months, roughly 3.5 months. And let's remember, too, that before the war started, Iran and the U.S. were actually in active nuclear talks. They were in Oman talking through a new nuclear deal, and Oman had said, oh my God, we're really close to reaching a deal. Next thing you know, the U.S. is bombing another country, and the whole leadership died other than the Ayatollah's son, and here we are. So all of that has been said. Big drama with the Strait of Hormuz being shut. You know the drill if you've been following this. Gas prices through the roof, hundreds of billions of dollars of cost from the U.S. side, and now we've finally got a deal. Let's get to it. So, like I said, there are 14 points in this agreement, and I want to count them down from least to most egregious. The first few we're going to just whiz through because they're, like I said, very boilerplate language when it comes to international peace treaties. And that is definitely true with point 14. Actually, I think I want to say 14 to, so this isn't technically, it's actually point 12, but it's number 14 on our list. And instead of just going point 14, point 12, I'm just going to do my list. So I'll just say number 14. So number 14, which is the monitoring mechanism, which basically says both sides agree to establish an executive mechanism to monitor compliance with this deal. Not interesting, no duh. Next. Number 13. The sequencing of negotiations. So basically it just says that this is the beginning and they're going to talk for 60 days and the ceasefire has to hold for the negotiations to keep happening. No shit. Not interesting. Next. Point 12. Mutual sovereignty and non-interference. So this is basically saying stop messing in internal affairs. Iran can do Iran stuff. The U.S. can do U.S. stuff. And basically, you go back to being sovereign countries. Sovereignty, for those who don't know, means that you get to run your own country, effectively. This isn't so interesting. I mean, obviously, there's a little bit of hypocrisy here because Trump has spent basically this whole war floating around the idea of regime change. Now that's effectively done. This is kind of ending that. So that's why it's a little higher on the list, but it's not really high because we kind of figured that that wasn't going to happen as soon as we found out that the Ayatollah's son had lived those strikes. So The next one, point 11, is the 60-day deadline. So what it says is both sides commit to negotiating, achieving a final deal within 60 days, extendable with mutual agreement, right? It's annoying. The reason why it's a little higher is that last phrase, right? Extendable with mutual agreement is doing a ton of heavy lifting because, A, what does that even mean? You can just keep pushing it back over and over and over again. And isn't that what we've been doing with Iran with the nuclear deal for years now, right? We've been negotiating with them for whatever, a decade, or at least since Trump tore up the nuclear deal. So that kind of just makes the whole thing very wishy-washy and means that there's really no rush on the 60 days that the terms say. The next one is that in this agreement, it ends all conflict, so end of the war, it says. But the interesting bit here is includes Lebanon. Now, as you know, or as you may not know, the U.S. really hasn't been actively attacking Lebanon, but Israel sure has. That's because Hezbollah, which is one of Iran's satellite organizations, you could say. I mean, I don't know if they would say that, but the U.S. certainly would say that, is in Lebanon, and Israel hates them, and they've been bombing them, and this has been a huge piece of contention, right? And equally what has dragged Lebanon into this war in general. Now, that's a huge deal because it's probably the most welcome thing in the entire document. People on the left, or people who oppose the conflict in general, have not liked the way Netanyahu has been handling Lebanon, aka bombing them relentlessly. And it's actually been a huge problem with the ceasefire because even when the U.S. agrees to something, Israel just kind of can't help itself and just continues to bomb and bomb Lebanon. So this is a big deal. We'll see if Israel can honor this. They have yet to do that. And there's a lot of drama if Israel was even kind of aware of this clause. But this is a big deal for Iran because they get some peace for their friends in Hezbollah. And it's a big deal because it hopefully stops a big war happening. Another one is interesting. So my number 9.14 is that this final deal will be endorsed by the UN Security Council. Now, this isn't so weird for international agreements. The UN is, the United Nations is the international body. What makes this interesting is this is the exact kind of terminology that the Obama-Iran deal originally used, and it was exactly what Trump continued to criticize. I guess I'm not breaking ground when I say Trump's a hypocrite, but it is interesting that this mechanism that's often called toothless, embarrassing, weak, is now coming back in an official agreement and is really kind of showing that the U.S. does indeed respect the UN. I mean, I think that should be a given, but a lot of conservatives do not think that. Frankly, a lot of, kind of isolationist type of people don't like the UN, and they're a source of a lot of chagrin for a lot of people. But interesting to see that back in the deal. Number 8 is that the U.S. will now lift all naval blockades and remove all of its forces. So what it says, the U.S. begins removing its naval blockade immediately upon signing and lifts it completely within 30 days. Also that the U.S. will remove its military. It's interesting that the blockade will be lifted immediately. It shows that it was clearly doing something. Iran was obviously saying, oh man, it's not doing anything. The U.S. was saying we're strangling them, or I forget, Trump said squeezing them like a pig, or it was something that didn't make any sense. But it is interesting. I mean, we are definitely now dismantling a big piece of leverage, no matter how extreme you want to say. So this is a concession from the U.S. and is giving Iran, no pun intended, some breathing room. Point number 7, or number 7 on the list, is the Strait of Hormuz opening up. Obviously, this is a huge deal. Big issues with gas prices when you go to war with a country that controls a major choke point of where the oil goes and comes from. And yeah, so the direct language is Iran will allow commercial vessels safe passage through the Strait of Hormuz at no charge for 60 days only. After that, Iran will negotiate with the Trump administration and maritime services of the Strait of Oman and Gulf states to come up with a fee. So that means that they're going to get like a tax when boats go through. I think that was a thing beforehand. I really should have done more research on that. I'm pretty sure it was. It's funny because Trump tweeted the other day, "Ships of the world, start your engines. Let the oil flow." Like it's this, he's just so ridiculous. But, I mean, let's be real. It's just 2 months of toll-free shipping. I mean, it's not that huge. The Hormuz victory is ridiculous given that, what was open before this war started? The Strait of Hormuz. So we're celebrating the reopening of something that wasn't open just before this war started. So what a victory. Number 6 on the list is this weird language around the nuclear situation, quote unquote. Obviously, if you ask Trump or Netanyahu, the big reason for this war was this fear of Iran getting a nuclear weapon. I mean, people have been correctly saying that Netanyahu has been worried about this his whole political career for the last 30 years, and basically have been trying to convince any U.S. president that this threat is imminent. He got Trump to agree. And so this is a big reason why the U.S. struck Iran last summer, right? Remember the bunker bombs, and went to war in general. So this is what the language says. So pending the final deal, Iran maintains the quote-unquote current status quo of its nuclear program. The U.S. will not impose new sanctions or deploy additional forces. So, yeah, the status quo right now is that Iran has 440 kilograms of uranium enriched at 60% purity. Now, it is not strong enough to be a nuclear weapon, but it is weird when that was the whole point of this thing, that nothing changes. So I wouldn't call that a win. I would just call that a bunch of war that got us back to where we started. The next point on the list, number 5, is that Iran says we won't build nukes. So this is hand in hand with the last one. The language is Iran reaffirms it shall not procure or develop nuclear weapons. Both sides agree to resolve the disposition of Iran's stockpiled enriched material. The issue of enrichment of Iran's nuclear needs will be addressed in the final deal. So, yeah, reaffirms that Iran will promise the thing it had promised 6 months ago. I mean, if we were going to just take them at their word, why did we go to war? Why are we even signing deals? This is ridiculous. This is when it gets juicy. So this is number 4. It's actually point number, 10 on the list. And it's that there's this immediate end of oil export waivers, or the implication of this. So what does it say? It says, immediately upon signing the MOU, the U.S. Treasury will issue waivers for the export of Iranian crude oil, petroleum products, and all associated services, including banking, insurance, and transportation. So this is a huge deal for Iran because the Iranian economy runs on oil. That shouldn't be that surprising. That's their whole thing. So these sanctions on oil exports. So what do sanctions mean? It's just like taxes and restrictions on where the oil can be exported, right? So we'll charge more, we don't allow it, stuff like that. It was basically the primary mechanism of negotiation in terms of preventing Iran from having a nuclear weapon. So what do I mean by that? I mean that they've basically squeezed them this way and said, we're doing this because we don't want you to make a nuclear weapon. So that's a big deal because now that you're saying you're not going to squeeze them, you're effectively allowing them to get richer and also really, really giving up the only leverage you really had in the negotiation. A lot of people think the only reason why Iran was negotiating in the first place was because these sanctions had really crippled the Iranian economy, and it had. Iran has had terrible inflation, major political unrest. I mean, I know it was so cruel, but remember in the beginning of the year when there were so many protests throughout Iran and they killed all the protests? It was awful. But those protests were because of the economy, because living in Iran had started to really suck, because it's one thing when your regime is this religious, state. It's another thing when it's a religious state and everyone is poor and gas is the only thing that you can do, and the prices are going crazy and it's a disaster. So this is huge relief for the Iranian economy, and really the U.S. giving up one of its biggest pieces of leverage that it has, period. So really, really crazy, actually, that is happening. And frankly, number 3 is a continuation of this. Not just export waivers, all sanctions are lifted, including those sanctions that were imposed by the UN and the IAEA. So the language says the U.S. commits to terminating all types of sanctions against Iran, including UN Security Council resolutions, IAEA Board of Governors resolutions, and all unilateral U.S. sanctions, primary and secondary, or on agreed schedule as part of the final deal. This is so much more extreme than what was in Obama's Iranian nuclear deal. It's not even funny. Obama's deal lifted sanctions. It did. I'm not going to say it didn't lift any sanctions. It did lift sanctions. But it definitely left others in place, particularly those related to Iran's missile program and support for terrorism. So basically, like, if you keep making these missiles, if you keep supporting Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis, yada, 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 we're going to keep these sanctions going. So it was kind of like a half and half. This is all sanctions. That's what it says here. It's just absolutely crazy. Again, just burning leverage one by one. This one is so crazy. Number 2. So number 2 on our list on the most egregious parts of the Iranian nuclear deal, or that Trump's one at least, is frozen assets released with no restrictions. So this is the language. The U.S. will make fully available all frozen or restricted Iranian funds and assets upon implementation of the MOU. The funds shall be fully usable for payment to any beneficiary designated by the Central Bank of the Islamic Republic of Iran. The U.S. will issue all necessary licenses accordingly. So how much is that? That's $24 to $25 billion of frozen Iranian assets. All of it released, unrestricted, payable to anyone they want. No conditions on the use, no restrictions on who can get them. This is nuts. This is what everyone in the Trump administration has been screaming about for a decade. He called Obama's return of Iranian assets pallets of cash, I think was the phrasing. And now he's sending all the money to who he calls a terrorist nation. Holy cow. This is ridiculous. So we are just giving Iran, on top of all the sanction relief, of $25 billion of free frozen assets, just as a thank you, I guess, for saying that you promised to not build a nuclear weapon. The thing you were already promising. Oh my God. It's just so dumb. But nothing makes you feel dumber than number 1 on this list, which is a $300 billion reconstruction fund. This is the language. The United States, with regional partners, commits to developing a plan with at least $300 billion for the reconstruction and economic development of the Islamic Republic of Iran. All require licenses, waivers, and permissions for the financial transactions will be granted by the United States. So, I don't think you understand. We didn't have to do any of this war. So we're now giving them $300 billion. That's on top of the $100 billion or more, frankly, that we've spent ourselves. So this is now, we went to war with Iran. We've now said, okay, sorry for all the damages we did. Here's money to rebuild the things we blew up. Also, we still have to pay for the losses we had. Also, you can have all your money back. Also, you can have all your sanctions relieved. But can you promise, like you used to promise, that you won't make a nuclear war? That's literally what this is. It's so crazy. Not only is it just ridiculous and hypocritical and stupid, frankly, to just bomb somewhere for 4 months and then fix it. Just the concept of that is so dumb. The more crazy thing is that, remember, if they give them $300 billion, why can't Americans get $300 billion for reparation? We have homelessness. We're getting food stamps cut. We're getting Medicaid cut. We can't get health care. We can't get freaking college. But Iran, we can rebuild Iran after we blew it up for literally no reason? That's oh my God. This is so dumb. It's almost insulting to compare this to the Obama nuclear deal because that at least resembled a deal. You can say, oh, I didn't like this, or maybe he was too soft on this, or maybe he should have been stricter on that. It was still a real deal. This is just the U.S. paying Iran hundreds of billions of dollars and letting them off the hook for years and years of funding terrorist organizations and spending a bunch of money bombing them to go not even back to square one, because square one, we had way more resources. This is like negative. This is just so dumb, man. And I'm exhausted. I'm on a weird time zone. I'm exhausted. But holy cow, this is stupid. It's just we're not even talking about the thousands of people have died. It's hard to wrap your head around how incompetent this is. Not to mention, stuff like there's not going to be $3 gas until 2032. This is just so stupid. And I know I've been a little bit rambly here, but hopefully you can understand that this deal, this peace deal, is such an embarrassment for the United States. It's really an embarrassment for Trump, but it's frankly an embarrassment of the entire diplomacy of this country, because we have just continually took loss after loss, holding and more else, just time and time again. It's terrible. So, yeah, we're 400 billion plus poorer. We now have made Iran stronger, and they still have an Ayatollah in charge. So this war gets a F from me, dog. And that's our show, folks. Thank you so much for listening. If you like the show, remember, give it a freaking review. Especially if you listen to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. Like, comment. You can also email us at media@thelonelyliberal.com. That is media@thelonelyliberal.com. Also, very important, there will be no show Sunday. Usually we do a news roundup. I will be in the plane all day, so we're going to have to take a little bit of a respite, but we will be back next Wednesday and the following Sunday. Normal scheduling and normal programming and all that stuff. So I won't be talking to you for a week. So until then, hey, have a go crazy this week. Have a great week. I see you there. I see you running around doing your thing. Keep it up. I'm losing my mind, dude. I'm tired. I gotta go to bed. I'll talk to you later, guys. Peace. Bye.